A mirthful and peaceful Monday afternoon to all. I am William Theo for PTV News Now. And with a little over 24 hours left till the entire nation celebrates the birth of the Prince of Peace, there is a lot to unpack on this eventful workday, beginning with Christmas Day is less than 36 hours away, and private sector employers, business owners are reminded and warned to grant their workers their 13th month pay as mandated by law in the next 24 hours. DOLE Secretary Benjamin Laguesma said his department, as well as the workers concerned, would much appreciate the photo finish gesture even if its benefit is paid tomorrow on deadline day as provided by law. For his part, the Labor Department chief is banking more on the owners' goodwill and compassion in doing their part rather than the force of the law compelling them to do the right thing and keep them out of trouble. The Labor chief added that employees who are deprived or don't receive their 13-month pay after tomorrow are enjoined to report their status so the Labor Department can summon the owners or employers and hold them into account. Meanwhile, the AFP, or Philippine military, declared earlier today its plans to acquire the controversial Typhoon missile system from the United States in line with protecting the country's interests and fortify its defense arsenal. The mid-range American missile system made its debut locally in the 2024 Balikatan drills, or joint Philippine-United States military exercises held in the northern part of the country from late April to the second week of May this year. In a consensus decision thereafter, the missile launcher was permitted to remain in the country, much to the dismay and pushback of mainland China, whose Coast Guard, Navy, and militia forces have repeatedly harassed and bullied Philippine Navy, Coast Guard, and especially the fisher folk, whose catch have been seized or their boats blasted with water cannons simply because the mighty Chinese Navy, Coast Guard, and militia forces can. Beijing wasted no time to condemn the AFP's decision to keep the Typhoon missile systems in certain areas of the country, saying the AFP greenlighting the deal was a provocative and dangerous move and warned carries the risk of triggering an arms race. The story of how America rose to its height of economic and military power is told in large part in the building the Great Transcontinental Railroad in the 1800s. A piece of America summed up in the production of a new musicale is narrated by VOA's Ann Rice.
American Railroad is a musical history of the construction of the transcontinental railway network, but it's seen through the eyes of those who actually built it. Immigrants from Ireland, Italy, Japan, China, as well as former African American slaves and Native American peoples.
You name it, people who were not considered of worth in our society.
The project, which includes an album as well as a tour with a film and lectures, was put together by Rhiannon Giddens, who calls herself a very American artist that's very rooted in history. She spent most of her artistic career highlighting the role of black musicians in the bluegrass, country, and folk genres.
They were the ones who built that incredibly, economically important and technologically important thing that, kind of transformed our histories.
Here at the local steel plant in Scranton, Pennsylvania, immigrant workers made the American rails, which replaced expensive imported British ones, and helped the U.S. rail industry take off. Steam locomotives are still restored and fixed at the local depot. These days, they transport tourists, but in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the Pennsylvania Railroad was the largest corporation in the world, says Tim O'Malley from the National Park Service.
In the early 1900s, the story of, or the culture of railroading was the culture of the United States. They were so dependent upon one another.
But it was a business that Giddens says rests on the bones of immigrant workers. With American Railroad, she took songs written by slaves who built the railway through North Carolina, Giddens' home state. And her hope is that the project continues to tell a unifying element of America's story, through the eyes of the people who built its history.
It's the never-ending dilemma of the artist, you know? It's like, what actual good are we doing? I don't know, but I do know that audiences have been very receptive and kind of needing this sort of message right now. The more we see ourselves in other people's, even though we've been told we're very different, the more we can actually do something, you know?
The American Railroad Project allows viewers to pay tribute to those underappreciated groups, without which the U.S. would have hardly become what it is now, says Giddens. For Nina Vishnova in New York, NRI's VOA News.
So that concludes this afternoon's set of breaking stories for you. Join us anew later on for the evening set of Newsbreakers. Make it a habit to tuning in and staying connected right here for news that you can rely on. I am William Theo, and thank you for watching PTV News Now.